Time now for our 3 brilliant minutes. We've talked a lot on this show in the past about hiring issues, but Brad has a whole new twist on this.
The bees are looking for help.
The bees.
Yeah, you know, we've talked many times about pollinators. In fact, just last week we had a story about pollinator protection legislation going into effect, because not just do flowers need pollinators, but our crops need them. And of course, we've seen the collapse of bee populations, so it's a little alarming. So that brings us to our friend,
The bee.
wrong. That's not a bee.
That's not a bee.
It's a bee imposter. It's
Oh.
a bee look-alike.
Okay.
Cleverly disguised as a bee, because when you look like a bee but you're actually a fly, but when you look like a bee, predators leave you alone.
Okay.
Clever disguise. This is actually the syrphid fly. Very common. Found throughout the world except Antarctica. 6,000 different species of them. But they look like bees. And it was a bee researcher at Washington State University that said, every time I'm out looking at bees, I'm seeing this imposter, which made him start thinking, is it possible that bee impersonating flies are actually
Pollinators?
doing what bees do? So here's what he did. He looked at 19 rural farms and 17 urban farms, did 6 surveys over 2 years. Now, when they do these surveys, they mark off a designated area
Okay.
and literally count and identify every bug they find. Now think
Well,
about
that sounds a little tedious.
You're telling me, and if you just doing some rough math, this was actually 200, I think about 210 or a little bit more plots that they did. So it was a pretty extensive
Yeah.
survey, okay? So take a look at what they found. And there's the fly again, by the way, that's not a bee. Flower visitors, 61% were bees, 35% were these syrphid flies, and 4% were other, and the other were wasps, spiders, butterflies, dragonflies, beetles, ants. But if you look at this fly, he is covered with pollen.
Yeah.
And they don't eat the pollen. All they do is collect nectar, and they go from flower to flower, accidentally, supposedly.
Spreading the pollen.
Correct. It's very interesting. And I love the statement from the researcher. He says, hey, there's room at the table for all the pollinators.
Especially since they didn't have enough for a while.
Absolutely. And you know, he emphasizes again, even if you have a crop like, say, for example, corn or something like that, they're urging people to plant flowering things along the perimeters, things that'll always be in bloom throughout the season, because a lot of these pollinators that assist bees, some of them aren't fully mature until later in the season, or some are early in the season. They're at various stages in their life throughout the growing season. So to make sure there's plenty of food always present so they can continue to help the bees.
Wow. Working for free, though. And we appreciate it.
We do indeed.
And we appreciate you, Brad.